Okay, we're on session 13 again, picking up at 1316. And I really like the tradition of giving thanks. So
Me too.
I'm going to continue that. Great. Yeah. So, yeah, especially this weekend as Aaron and some of our other friends are at homecoming, the oil research. I like to call it Raw headquarters. Giving thanks to Ra. Thank you, Ra. Those of Ra. Thank you to those of the Confederation who are with us, though invisible to our eyes. Thank you so much to our human companions, mind, body, spirit complex companions of Dawn and Carla and Jim, and those who continue LL research to bring us this material. Our guides and allies of the Confederation, those on the positive path, thank you for being with us during this session. Thank you for supporting our understanding and practice of this material. Okay. So picking up at 1316. Anybody want to start us off?
I can read.
Great.
Okay, 1316. Questioner, could you tell me about this first density of planetary entities? I am Ra. Each step recapitulates intelligent infinity in its discovery of awareness. In a planetary environment, all begins in what you would call chaos, energy undirected and random in its infinity. Slowly, in your terms of understanding, there forms a focus of self-awareness. Thus the logos moves. Light comes to form the darkness according to the co-creator's patterns and vibratory rhythms, so constructing a certain type of experience. This begins with first density, which is the density of consciousness, the mineral and water life upon the planet learning from the fire and wind with wind the awareness of being. This is the first density. Questioner, does this first density then progress to greater awareness? Ra, the spiraling energy, which is the characteristic of what you call light, moves in straight line spiral, thus giving spirals an inevitable vector upwards to a more comprehensive beingness with regard to intelligent infinity. Thus, first-dimensional beingness strives towards the second density lessons of a type of awareness, which includes growth rather than dissolution or random change. Questioner, could you define what you mean by growth? I'm Ra. Picture, if you will, the difference between first vibrational mineral or water life and the lower second density beings, which begin to move about within and upon its being. This movement is the characteristic of second density, striving towards light and growth. Questioner, by striving toward light, what do you mean? I am Ra. A very simplistic example of second density growth, striving towards light, is that of the leaf striving towards the source of light. Questioner, is there any physical difference between first and second density? For instance, if I could see a second density planet and a first density planet side by side in my present condition, could I see both of them? Would they be both visible? I am Ra. This is correct. All of the octave of your densities would be clearly visible were not the fourth through seventh freely choosing not to be visible. Questioner, then how does the second density progress to the third? I am Ra. The second density strives toward the third density, which is the density of self-consciousness or self-awareness. The striving takes place through the higher second density forms who are invested by third density beings with an identity to the extent that they become self-aware mind-body complexes, thus becoming mind-body-spirit complexes and entering third density, the first density of consciousness of spirit.
Boom.
I think let's pause there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so any insights? What do y'all get from all that?
Insights, thoughts, and questions.
I have a question.
Great.
We have previously talked about, okay, so it's 1320, like all the octaves of your density would be clearly visible. We're not fourth through seventh freely choosing not to be visible. Is that specific to us, like Earth, because of the quarantine, or is this this apply to every third density planet? Like, do they like when they're in fourth through seventh? Like once you go through fourth and seventh, are you just like, oh, I'm just gonna stop being visible to their density? Maybe it has something to do with the what is it, like non-interference or something?
Hmm.
Or is this specifically because Earth is not supposed to be, Earth is under quarantine?
I have thoughts about that. I don't think I necessarily know the answer. Anybody else have thoughts?
Mm.
Yeah, what do you think, Yuri?
I think it's general, and there is specific information where Ra describes like how the Earth is shifting to the fourth density, and the dual activated bodies, the complexes with dual activated bodies, they are like third density beings. And fourth, they're actually fourth density being having the third density body, and they are here to learn how to become invisible. And it seems it's like a general rule that the fourth density is learning how to become invisible for the third density beings, and the same for all other densities beings. And for me, it's looks like very clear that it's a case for entire creation.
Hmm.
To keep the free will like for the third density, to keep
Yeah.
the free will.
Yeah, that's my guess about it too. That it's not just about quarantine, that it's about the veil, about the like preserving the law of confusion for third density. I wouldn't see how it's related to quarantine specifically, but I don't know. It's a good question.
And why would it violate the law of confusion if they were visible? If we looked into space and it's like, oh, hey, look at all these advanced civilizations. Like there are all these aliens. Is that a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the law of confusion has to do with like being able to be under the illusion that there is separation, and that that there isn't really a mystery. Like I think there's a clue for me in what they've talked about. Like UFO sightings are intended to give the option of point towards mystery. But then there's always what's that term? Plausible deniability. Like that's sort of always part of it, like something that looks like a UFO, then could look like it just turned into an airplane or something, which happens all the time to me. It's like, that is not an airplane, that is not an airplane. And then it's like, wait, that's an airplane. But it wasn't, it was like, yeah, that was not an airplane. I can tell it wasn't. Okay. But then there's plausible deniability. And I think that's like built in, that's like part of the higher density beings doing to support our ability to choose. I think there's like something paramount about our ability to freely choose, not have the mystery like in our face and like, nope, you can't deny it now. It's like, no, it's really important that we have faith, I think. That's my take.
I think catalyst comes into play there too.
You want to say more about that?
Yeah, just in response to the query, and what you were saying, which sounds similar to the way I was thinking about it. Definitely the law of confusion provides for catalyst. And without catalyst, there's not so much of the urgency or something for growth.
Mhm.
But then I think part of your question, Shang, was also, is it consistent to like other galaxies and stuff? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, like, is it just Earth that like we can't see the higher densities?
Right. I didn't perceive it that way, but I don't know for sure either.
Yeah.
It might be the solar system, might be the whole galaxy. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
What
Maybe our sublogos, the sun, just decided to do it this way. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that. But for some reason, when you asked it, I thought that or maybe I just previously thought that it wasn't exclusive to planet Earth. But heck, I don't know.
what do you mean by the catalyst? What were you referring to specifically? Like, was that with regards to the not being visible, or
Um, while I was perceiving your question as seeing sort of like the higher truth, the reality of everything being one, and being in that reality, we would be less compelled
oh, I
to,
see. Yeah,
yeah.
yep, got it.
Yeah. Well, another thought about all that, like I heard you say, Scott, maybe it's just the logos and the logos choice, I think, for this galaxy. But something that stood out to me was, that it's the free choice of 4th through 7th. So it doesn't seem like it's the logos's plan, although what's the difference, I guess? Maybe the logos has the plan for the 4th through 7th to freely choose. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, just interestingly, 4th through 7th here, at least, freely chooses that. Anything else on this topic?
Yeah, I'm curious because I'm pretty sure my cats can see things that I can't see all the time. And I think that according to the law of one, would we categorize them as second density on their way to third density? So I wonder what that means about that a veil of invisibility and about the cat's understanding of, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if what they're seeing is 4th density and beyond, but they do see stuff that I don't see. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah.
And some kids see that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Until
Yeah.
they get it stamped out of them.
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, that's my thought about it too. Like, I think a lot of the veil of forgetting has to do with our conditioning.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is a lot of magic that we're, oh, Nia's here now, that we're connected to, but then through our free choice, you know, like our parents, you know, tell us things, and then we freely choose to believe in, like, oh yeah, it's just material reality, there's not actually magic, or, you know, like, you know, stop playing with your imaginary friends, you know, time to do your homework or whatever, and then we freely choose, okay, got it, I'll stop seeing that, you know. Like, I know that, like, I used to see energy, I used to see people's energy bodies, and like see the shape of people's energy, and then realized after a little while, like, oh, other people don't talk about that, maybe I don't, maybe that's not so important or whatever, you know, and it just kind of like fell away. So I think that's more like, in our adult lives, that's more like conditioning that makes that the case, rather than, or I mean, I guess it's related, right? Like that is the veil of forgetting also, that I'm choosing to let that go because it doesn't seem to serve me or something.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I would like to add also, I don't know how it was on Venus, but on our planets, definitely that many people didn't started their spiritual journey, and they choose to be in material world, and it's their free will. And if there would be some very different guys which are semi-transparent or something flying in the sky, that's definitely not their free will to see this, and they have to be open to this. The same way that I think the whole humanity could refuse from this quarantine if we would choose to do this. It's not something outer um, power which was put upon us, so we can go beyond quarantine if we would choose it. So I think it's very interference into our free will if we would see the fourth density beings. From
Yeah.
other point of view, I think those guys, like those 3D beings who really eager to contact this subtle reality, they are able to see beings. And I've heard many stories when people could feel some spirits or dark energies or dark beings being contacted by dark and energies or beings. I think it happened quite often. So and it's free will to feel that.
Mhm.
I can, based off what we've talked about, I can see, like, on the positive path, like, it's like the prime directive of Star Trek, right? Like, you start evolving and then you realize, oh, like, we're not going to interfere with the third density civilizations because they need to, like, figure their stuff out and make their choice that they want to be contacted. But I wonder how that works on the negative path, because I think I remember that, didn't we talk a little bit about, like, negative fourth density? One of the things they try to do is conquer, like, third density civilizations before they form a social memory complex, and that doesn't seem like they would voluntarily choose not to. I mean, it's like an invasion, right?
Right.
Anyways,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they invade, and they call themselves to be called. Something like
Right,
this.
yeah, they do their own calling.
Yeah,
But
and
that's
there are some advanced negative beings or density beings that call crusaders and then try to defeat them as well. I have a question if we are done with it.
I think,
Uh,
well, Scott had his hand up and then you had your hand up and now Scott has his hand up again. Did, did you, did your original question go away, Scott?
No, there was just a couple things that stood out to me during the reading that caught my attention.
Okay.
One of them was the same thing
Well,
you said.
let's do your question first and then we'll have you on stack next year.
Okay, let me go back to the material. 1318, where Ross says, if you will, the difference between first vibrational mineral or water life and lower second density beings, which begin to move about within and upon its being. What being are they referring to? What is the its being? Like that statement, I mean, that was fascinating. At the same time, I didn't quite understand what they were referring to. Let me read it again. Could you, the question says, could you define what you mean by growth? And Ra says, I am Ra. Picture, if you will, the difference between first vibrational mineral or water life and the lower second density beings which begin to move about within and upon its being. This movement is the characteristics of second density, the striving towards flight and growth. So I wasn't sure if they meant moving upon mineral or water life. Maybe that's what they meant.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
think they
interpreted
mean
it.
mineral. Yeah. I think they mean mineral and water life. Like in 1316, the answer, the mineral and water life upon the planet, learning from fire and wind. So I kind of take it to mean like the mineral and water life of the planetary being. So I took its being to be the planetary being, but I don't,
Oh,
yeah, I'm not
that's
sure.
and that other statement that you just mentioned was another one that, like, I thought that was just fascinating. That learning from fire and where is it again?
The end of 1316, the mineral and water life upon the planet, learning from fire and wind, the awareness of being.
So mineral and water learned from fire and wind.
Yeah. That's fascinating, right?
Maybe vice versa also.
Yeah, I think they say the mineral and water learns from fire and wind, and then the fire and wind are informed by, I think. I don't remember where I've read that before.
Well, both of those things were just like sort of like poignant things that like I wasn't quite clear on.
Yeah.
I mean, first density life is like what it's. Is it just? Is it just this? That's like the planet when it just formed, right? Like it was still. I mean, it was like basically all lava, right?
Right, like not even like amoebas or protozoas or something, I guess.
Yeah. So like the word life here is very. I wouldn't call it life, but Ra calls it life, right? Like as in like we science, our modern science would not call that life.
Right.
So the fact that Ra calls it life, like it's really hard for me to understand what it means by like wind and fire shaping like earth and water. Like is he just talking about like the forces of like nature that cause the planet? So my understanding is that there has to be in order for second density life, not all planets support second density life, right? And I think for a planet to support second density life, that planet needs to have like certain properties, probably like a magnetic field, maybe like movement. Like there needs to be some sort of movement within the planet. Maybe that's what what Ra is talking about with the fire and wind shaping like earth and water, and that like the planet needs to have like movement in order for the conditions of second density to actually create life. Like if it was just a static planet, like a rock of iron, I don't think there's any potential for second density life.
And maybe the use of the word learning is different from how we usually use it. You think about
Yeah.
a
How does
teacher,
water learn, right?
right, from fire. And maybe it's just like an exchange of energy.
Yeah, it could just be the forces that shape that cause, like, because early Earth was like a bunch of volcanoes, a lot of storms. Like maybe those are the things that he's talking about. Like the formation of the oceans was a lot of, I don't know, some sort of chemical processes. So maybe it's those processes.
Well, I guess I go back to, you know, like the very beginning. Let's see, 1.0, I think it was. You're not part of a material universe, you're part of a thought. You're dancing in a ballroom in which there is no material. You're dancing thoughts. So I think what that makes me think of is like learning. So there's the potential to seem as though we're not just dancing thoughts, or that there isn't just thought. And so learning is remembering wholeness, you know, ultimately remembering the one original thought, I think, which is the expression of wholeness and oneness. So I guess what learning means to me, that there is the ability to take on new thoughts, new patterns of thought, new ways of understanding. And you know that I referred to that recently, or that study recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, or maybe that was in Secret of Light study. Anyway, the Professor Emoto and his work with showing how water carries thought and holds thought. So that's interesting. Like, and maybe, you know, even though there isn't like a self-consciousness, because it seems like that's late second density, right? Like cats, for instance, who are pets, can begin to have self-consciousness, especially if they associate with their name, like, oh, you're referring to me, and that means there's a me. So it seems like water wouldn't be able to have self-awareness, but it still can begin to learn the awareness of being. Yeah. Not sure what all that means either.
I have some thoughts on that. As I understand that the first density is 5 elements on any planets, and when they say that that fire and wind, where is it? I didn't find. So the fire and wind are those who help to learn. Since the lesson of the second density is moving, which is being learned in the first density, I think the wind and the fire is something that helps other elements to move and to shape, like volcanic activity. The fire is moving the earth, and the wind can move the earth, the water, and those elements help to move other elements. And that's why that's how the other elements learn the lesson of moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because like you need certain chemical processes for the foundation of second density to form, and you need like the wind and fire to initiate a lot of those, probably.
Yes, and surprisingly, it seems not that all planets in our solar systems have first density, even.
Isn't first density just existing though? Like they don't have second density, but wouldn't they have first density just by existing?
I don't know. I think some planets just belong to the Logos and they don't have their own kind of identity. When Don was asking Ra about stages of evolvement of other planets in solar system, then they mentioned Venus, of course, and then Mars, Earth, Saturn, and Uranium, I think. And they don't name other planets, which seems they don't have even like about Uranus and not Uranus. I think Uranus. He says that it's in the first density and has potential to move through the whole all densities, but he doesn't say the same about Uranus.
I do
So
remember that. Was he asking about like which planets will have third density life? I forgot. I do remember.
just about the process of like where there is possibility to go through the all densities. I think something like this. So surprisingly, Jupiter doesn't have its own identity, I think. But in astrological terms, it has a great value at the same time.
That's interesting. Do you want to get to your question now, Yuri?
Yes, 1316, 16, there is a passage, light comes to form the darkness according to the co-creator's patterns and vibratory rhythms, so constructing a certain type of experience. So any ideas on what does it mean light comes to form the darkness? Saying about the first density of planetary and entities. Maybe it's like intelligent infinity comes to create like first density, which is chaos, and this chaos is a darkness, like infinity possibilities for further evolvement of life. I don't know, just some thoughts coming.
Yeah. Well, something that I get from the Secret of Light study related to that is that the way Walter Russell talks about it is like a light forms in spheres. I think I could have this wrong, but light forms in spheres. And the sphere of light is condensed from a corresponding cube. So there's a cube of energy or cube of awareness, and light like pulls all of the qualities of light, the gravitational forms of light, I think. Anyway, I'm not necessarily saying this very well, maybe not making sense, but what it makes sense to me is that like how seeming opposites are birthed from the same thing, that light creates darkness because light is a forming of one idea, And in order for there to be light, there has to be darkness. And Walter Russell explains how that is literally true, how light is the congregating or coagulating or something of that one idea, which creates in parallel fashion darkness. And that makes sense to me in terms of like just looking at what Ross says before that. Slowly, in your terms of understanding, there forms a focus of self-awareness. So thus the logos moves. And I think self-awareness is what is able to create ideas, meaning like the idea of one thing as opposed to another thing, rather than all things are one. Like when all things are one, I don't know that there is self-awareness. I don't know if that's true, but that makes sense to me. When like from creator's perspective, there may not be still self-awareness, because self-awareness has to be a focalized awareness. And I think with a focalized awareness, that creates the possibility of seeming opposites. So that's what it makes sense. That's what it does for my mind anyway. And where it says, so constructing a certain type of experience, like meaning conditions, like conditions or states rather than unconditional, oneness.
Okay, thank you. And does anybody remember the passage when somewhere Russ says something like opposite, that the darkness creates light? Does anybody remember, or I'm mistaken?
I don't remember that. We could do a search of the material.
It's a bit difficult. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It makes sense what you're saying.
And this is also like from the perspective of the physical phenomenon of how the planets form.
Right.
This also is a very abstract description of that process, but it fits. Like, I mean, with the solar system, according to modern astronomy, it's just started as like a cloud of dust that it's like a big cloud of dust and gases that coagulates. The center forms a star, which and then that gravity causes some spinning, and then the planets eventually clump together, which I assume are the focuses of self-awareness, perhaps. And like it is the light. It's when the gases and dust like coagulate enough to ignite like fusion, then like that really starts the birth of the solar system. In which case that light is literally shaping the darkness to form the solar system. I'm sure there's a metaphysical equivalent to that also.
Can be. It's I have like idea that light is a sort what do you call it? First, not deviation. How do you call it?
Distortion.
Distortion, right? So the light is a sort distortion, and it's like light. What all the creation is a light. Yes, all the creation by logos is a light, and if we specify on some place, like some solar system or some planet, light comes to form the darkness, which is like a micro process of creating like first distortion in some particular space when there is where when everything begins with darkness, which is a chaos. I don't know, my idea is chaotic, but it's like Mandelbrot system where you find in smallest things the big picture and vice versa. I don't know
Yeah.
if anybody gets me.
Yeah.
I
Do you want to say
interpret light.
something, Sean? Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, my interpretation of light is just the first two distortions, free will and love, foci. They exist not necessarily in the physical, and light is the physical manifestation of everything. Like when my understanding is what we experience in the physical universe, probably metaphysical, but at least in the physical universe, it's light is the physical manifestation of the creator. Which means darkness. Like, what is darkness? Like, it's just like, in my interpretation, it's just potential. Like, everything that is light. So like, the darkness is just like that which hasn't been manifested, I guess. And so in that sense, like all the manifestation is formed through light because that is literally the creator creating. And the darkness is just, like everything that could be potentially created, I guess.
That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. The void, some people refer to it as the void. The unmanifest with potential.
Yeah, it makes sense to me as well when light comes to create something which has potential of reveal, and it begins from the darkness, from the house, from the potential. So when and it's like a start of first density, which have full potential to go through all the densities, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, also Walter Russell distinguishes and makes a distinction between the way he expresses it as a capital L light and a lowercase l light. And that like capital L light is like expression of oneness of the creator, and that can create a lowercase l like physical phenomenon of light. And so from his perspective, there's a distinction, which makes sense to me, that anything that seems to take physical form would somehow be a distortion because it's seemingly separate, like lowercase l light is seemingly separate from darkness, that we can see at night. So that makes sense to me to kind of have that distinction, that like the light of the sun that's coming in through the window right now is seemingly, is in some way a distortion because it's seemingly separate from darkness. And I experience darkness, anything that has become polarized is just an opportunity to experience the other, so darkness, physical darkness is an opportunity to experience light. So that's one way that I think of it. Because if, like, for instance, if all things were like, if there was never any darkness, if the sun was always shining on us, and I guess if there wasn't, like, we couldn't go into a closet or whatever, like if there was no way to experience darkness, then we wouldn't really know that there was light. It's like that that thing about like the fish doesn't know that it's in water or whatever. Like, we need to be able to experience opposites in order to even know that there's an experience of light. Okay, there's something that I wanted to bring up too, and then I think let's keep reading. So at the end of 1321, okay, I'll just read that last sentence again. The striving takes place through the higher second density forms who are invested by third density beings, with an identity to the extent that they become self-aware mind-body complexes, thus becoming mind-body-spirit complexes and entering third density, the first density of consciousness of spirit. So I just wanted to talk about that very last part, the first density of consciousness of spirit. What is that about? And it seems like it points back to, those questions about fire and wind, and how mineral and water learns from fire and wind. But so how is it that second density enters third density? Like, how is that connected? And what does that mean, first density of consciousness of spirit?
Religion.
I've got something.
Go for
Where
it.
do
Yeah.
you go? Want to go,
Can I
Nia?
use?
Mine's really quick. To me, fire, water, earth, wind, elements just are. They do what they do. Second density beings, being multi-celled organisms, also just do what they do, but they have a little more. They have instinct. They have a desire to procreate and create life. As a plant desires to be pollinated, its existence becomes a petaled flower, attracting another being to it in order to facilitate pollination and therefore seed and therefore fruit, therefore getting picked up by another animal, moved along the path, and creation. It's gone to seed. It's done what it's meant to do, which is continue the life cycle. The hawks in my yard, they call to each other. They are starting to have an awareness of other versions of themselves. They also run from enemies or fly away from the enemies. They have the beginnings of awareness, but they are still growing on just instinct. Everything in them is still from their DNA facilitated directives. When we get to the first mind, body, spirit complex, that to me overlaps again with that awareness of self, where our pets have names, they are suddenly self-aware. That everything before in first and second density has what Ra calls consciousness, which is part of the one infinite creator. Consciousness, though we think of it, is self-aware. I think we overlap the terms and use self-awareness as consciousness, but the way I've seen Ra describe consciousness interchangeably is just existence, is the first distortion of free will comes into the first density of consciousness, which is third density awareness. So consciousness becomes aware. That's where the term spirit comes in instead of mind-body complex, which is the hawks that are just existing on instinct. We have suddenly the first time the first distortion of free will. We have choices. And that creates the spirit aspect. So we as humans also interchange the spirit and soul, whereas it could just be moving past instinct, moving past just existing, being part of the one infinite's consciousness. We are now moving towards self-awareness with choices, aka first distortion, free will. That's all.
Thanks.
I want to add to that.
Yuri.
And sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Go
Yuri raised his hand, then you go.
It's okay. Please go on, Chuck.
I was just gonna say, like, it's with that self-awareness where I think the spirit complex is the first drive to search for meaning. I don't think the search for meaning exists in second density. Like, deer, hawks, they eat, they sleep, they poop, and that's what drives them, right? Like sometimes, yeah, like they don't ask like, why am I here, right? Like it's with cavemen that like that you start getting like religion and art and like people wondering like, what's the meat, like why are we on this planet? Like I think that is a drive towards the creator that doesn't exist in second density of like the search. That's the spirit, right, of like that need to like experience or like know, or like there's some part of that like the mind is just that probably goes with the instinct, right? Like of like figuring out like how the world works, like how to hunt a rat or something. But it's the spirit, which is like that drive to create or like to experience or something that doesn't exist in second density.
So why did they say the first density of consciousness of spirit? That's what I'm not understanding.
Yeah, that's the first. Third density is the first density in which
Oh,
that drive exists.
It's the first density. Okay. I was thinking first density. That's what I didn't get.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Semantics.
There we go. There's my question. It's the first density of consciousness of spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Do you
Can I
want to say something also, Yuri?
Yeah,
And then you, Scott.
I think that the spirit is significator of the first distortion, which is free will, and my comment is very close to Nias. So the third density is the first when the beings have their own free will, which is not the case for the first and second density, and that's the third density is the density where the free choice is coming to the picture.
Yeah. Scott, you want to say something? And then you also have a question?
Well, I wanted to add to the conversation because it kind of, kind of brought some stuff up for me in terms of questioning I like the distinction that what Nia was mentioning about instinct, right? Like we have instinct too still in us, but also this a zone between late second density maybe and early third density, and how much awareness do animals, second density animals, or what are considered second density animals. And one of the things that made me think about is, has anybody seen that documentary, Anna the Animal Communicator? No? So it's fascinating, right? She's from South Africa, and she unlocks this ability to communicate deeply with animals, and so she becomes a liaison between animals and people in South Africa in different scenarios. And this woman hears about her and follows her along and makes a documentary. You can watch as things unfold live. So she has very in-depth communication with the it's not gorillas, it's not orangutans, chimpanzee. No, what's the other one I'm thinking about? The primates that live in the hills, and they come into town. They have a lot of interaction. Sometimes they steal things from people's cars, and then human beings set traps for them and cut their arms off. And she goes up and she has this very in-depth through like telepathy. And then later there's several other things that they show. So there's this guy who rescues these animals. He loves animals. He has sort of a sanctuary for animals, and particularly big cats. And so there's this one black puma, I think it is, black cougar or whatever, that they is very aggressive, and they can't let it out of its cage. Like bit him once and sent him to the hospital, and it always seems to be hostile. So they hear about her and they bring her in, and so she sits down and she starts communicating with the animal, and the animal starts, why are you so upset? And like it tells it like it doesn't like its name, right? Like, why are you calling me Diablo? Like I'm amongst my people or amongst my clan, I was a very majestic and highly regarded being, and then it has a lot of grief and anger because it was in a zoo at some point, and there were these two young cubs that it was very close to, and they got taken away. And like it's telling her this whole story, and these are just a couple examples. So if that's true, which I believe it is, and in my own study of like bird language and things like that, which is part of our whole curriculum and stuff that we do, their language is so sophisticated. So, and there's many other examples, I think particularly, this is going back to a thought I had earlier when we were talking about the conditioning of us to not be able to see into, let's say, the spirit world, but how in a lot of indigenous cultures and the shamanic cultures, and there is a lot of training typically with that, they have the ability to do that. Like in the South American tribes, they talk about a lot. They have very clear communication with the plants, and that's how they know what medicine they have and what they are specifically used for, what part of the body. And they have their ikaros, which are songs. So that whole conversation is very fascinating from that point of view, right? Like, so then if that's true, then what is the distinction? But still, so they have that ability. Let's say the animals have that ability, but maybe what they don't have is to have this perception of whatever word we put it on it, like the greater consciousness, the one infinite creator, or like to even consider the sun in the same way that we do. I don't know. Just those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I would guess, that big cat that was called Diablo, and the primates, whatever kind of primate that was, I would guess that they do have some sense of self-awareness, at least burgeoning sense of self-awareness. Sounds like it. I don't know. I haven't seen the documentary. Yeah. Sounds really interesting. Maybe you can drop it in
I
the
recommend
chat.
watching it. It literally brought me to tears a couple of times because it was like when you were talking about remembering, it's like it awoken something in it to me that I felt like deep down, like I knew was true when I was a kid or something, in that realm of oneness or something, interspecies communication, all of that can happen.
Right. You want to share it in on the Telegram?
The Telegram, sure.
Great. How about we get to your comment, and then we also need to keep reading? Or was that in response to something, or was that what you raised your hand for?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That's all.
Okay. Any other comments about that before we get back to the reading? All right. Anybody want to pick up at 1322? We can do it. I'll just take us all the way to the end. Questioner, what is the density level of our planet Earth at this time? I am Ra. The sphere upon which you dwell is third density in its beingness of mind, body, spirit complexes. It is now in a space-time continuum, fourth density. This is causing a somewhat difficult harvest. Questioner, how does a third density planet become a fourth density? I am Ra. This will be the last full question. The fourth density is, as we have said, as regularized in its approach as the striking of a clock upon the hour. The space-time of your solar system has enabled this planetary sphere to spiral into space-time of a different vibrational configuration. This causes the planetary sphere to be able to be molded by these new distortions. However, the thought forms of your people during this transition period are such that the mind-body-spirit complexes of both individual and societies are scattered throughout the spectrum instead of becoming able to grasp the needle, shall we say, and point the compass in one direction. Thus the entry into the vibration of love, sometimes called by your people the vibration of understanding, is not effective with the present societal complex. Thus the harvest shall be such that many will repeat the third density cycle. The energies of your wanderers, your teachers, and your adepts at this time are all bent upon increasing the harvest. However, there are few to harvest. Questioner, I would like to apologize for asking sometimes wrong or inappropriate questions. It's difficult sometimes to ask precisely the right question. I don't wish to go over any ground that we've already covered. I notice this period is slightly shorter than previous periods. Is there a reason for this? I am Ra. This instrument's vital energy is somewhat low. Questioner, I'm assuming from this that it would be a good idea not to have another session today. Is this correct? I am Ra. It is well to have a session later if it is acceptable that we monitor this instrument and cease using it when it becomes low in the material which we take from it. We do not wish to deplete this instrument. Questioner, this is always acceptable in any session. I will ask my final question. Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or facilitate these communications? I am Ra. It is well. Each is most conscientious. Continue in the same. Is there any other query? Questioner, Tom Flaherty will be here this evening and will be helping in the evening session. Is this all right? I am Ra. This is correct. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai. So the vibration of love is not effective with the present societal complex. What do y'all make of that?
I want to go back and read that part again
Mm-hmm.
before I can comment on it.
So, I'm I'm I read this. I'm reading this book, which doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the book is, but the book there's this one part that talks about technology, and I want to use that as a metaphor. I think for this density of love, which is technology just makes you be able to do what you're already doing more.
Yeah.
So there's more good things and more bad things. So like you can do your bad things a lot more effectively. You can do your good things a lot more effectively. And I'm interpreting this fourth density energy the same way, in that like supposedly by the time this fourth density energy comes, you're supposed to already have your shit together well enough where like this energy comes and everyone forms this global society and you enter this golden age. But in our case, we don't have our shit together and we just have more of some good things, plenty of bad things, a lot of mess, a lot of what do you call it, like tribalism, like people not coming together. This energy is it's making what already was even more, which is a lot of polarization, a lot of conflict, there are definitely cases where people are coming together. There's certainly light, but they're all, I mean, what? Just watch the news, right?
Yeah. I really resonate with that piece about technology just makes us more of what we are. Makes a lot of sense to me, and it highlights for me something that's been really important on my path, that like transcending victim consciousness, you know, because we could be like, oh, money's the root of all evil, and I think money's actually just a technology, and money can be used to accelerate goodness or also to accelerate, you know, darkness or evil. So there's nothing that's causing our problems other than our own selves. Scott?
Oh, well, I had a thought recently, kind of along the lines of what you just said, so I'll share that, which is the way I was just kind of thinking about things like for so long, through thousands of years, right, as a human race, we've had enemies with each other, right? Like, oh, they're the enemy, tribal enemies, and the, you know, wherever you go across the planet, right? With maybe exception with few societies, right? And now we're this global community. We're still doing that thing, right? Some people are hell bent on that, you know, creating enemies and trying to get other people to believe that they're the enemy because they have certain motives. And I'm like, well, now that we've reached this point, really the thing to realize is that we're just our own worst enemy. If we want to, you know, like have a new enemy, it's just like, hey, we're our own worst enemy. There's no out there that's really the enemy. You know what I mean? It's like it's in here. Anyways, it's just a thought that I've been thinking of recently.
Totally.
Stop punching yourself in the face.
or whatever you're doing, you know.
Yeah. And
Uh,
also, may it begin with me, whatever it is I'm wanting to see, may it begin with me, and the humility of that act.
mhm.
Amanda's had her hand up for a while.
Okay. You're not showing up on my screen.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I just yeah, when we're ready to change the subject, I have a question that's off that specific topic.
Cool. Were you complete with yours, Scott?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amanda.
Okay. So my question is, I'm still having a hard time with the okay, I get that the people are third density beings, but what does it mean what is it that the planet is in fourth density? I'm not really sure. Like, I'm just having a hard time understanding that part. And I know you all are a lot more studied than I am.
Well, I think these concepts are just hard to grasp. So it's not like you're behind or anything. But I have a comment about it and would love to hear what other people think. I think the planet reaches fourth density, and I could totally be wrong. It kind of just means that it's prepared for the beings upon it to reach fourth density. Like it means that there's fourth density capability now available. Like I think I've heard Ross say the planetary in-streamings, like the whatever it is that allows us to move to fourth density as a collective is now available. That's my take. Anybody else have thought about what it means for the planet to be fourth density? Yuri.
I think later Russ said that the fourth density planet is already formed as our body is yellow ray body, and the same way and the same way the green ray planet is already formed, and the force density beings with dual activated bodies are coming to the Earth to prepare this to activate fully this 4-density planet, and to shift the whole planet to the 4th density, like not the whole, to prepare the planet for the 4th density, but it's already formed. And I have comment as well to the previous question regarding the not effective with the present societal conflicts. As I understand, it means that on our planet, both polarizations are available, the positive and negative ones, which create problems with harvest and with the transfer, because of there are two polarities available, and that's why the harvest is not effective to the 1st density. That's it.
I want to add to what Amanda asked, and just say, there's this. I think the distinguishing between the environment, which is based off, I think, the logoic, like the energy coming out from the logos, like the galaxy and the suns. They're distinguish that between like the people inhabiting the planet. So the people inhabiting the planet are the 3rd density mind body spirit complexes, but now Earth is entering, just based off how the galaxy is designed, because Ross says it's like a clock, like it just goes through the cycles based off some predetermined schedule, sort of like school, right? Like every year you're supposed to go the next grade, but that doesn't mean you're ready to go the next grade. And I think it's not just our planet, but just planets, just the design of the galaxy. I think in general, systems go through energy zones, which are split into densities, which is like the energy associated with the light within like that space-time or time-space. It goes through a regular schedule, which Ross says is like a clock. It's just how it is. And if you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. You go repeat it somewhere else. You're muted, BJ.
Thanks. Yeah, it seems like maybe it's kind of similar to when they talk about the line of light, or sometimes the like we talk about like the spiral staircase, and like you go, like there's greater density of light available, but we go as far as we're able to. I mean, this is different than this, but it just seems similar that like we go when it's the time of harvest, we go as far as we're able to based on our own ability to be in the light, like we don't go beyond where we're able to go. And I kind of take it to be similar, like now there's more light available on the planet, but not everyone is open to it. Not everyone's interested in it. That's what I take it to mean.
So I guess the follow-up question is if the planet is in 4th density, I thought that 4th density is either invisible or non-physical. So what is that in terms of, like, I understand that, when humans go through harvest, the humans will, some will go through harvest and then some will repeat the grade. But what about the planet? Like, are we on a invisible or non-physical planet? Because It seems like we're still on a third density planet, right? You all are smiling. I love
know.
this.
I was gonna say Shang is smiling. I want to hear what he has to say, and then I have a comment on that.
I'm smiling because I feel like we always ask the same question of like,
Totally.
hey, aren't we in fourth density already? Like, we don't feel like it's any different. And then it's like, well, we're in the beginning of fourth density. It's only been, we're technically transitioning. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe like 1,000 years from now, we'll all become invisible, because I think there's at some point in fourth density where you're supposed to enter a light body because you evolve enough. I mean, I remember we're looking at Genghis Khan, who's in fourth density, and he's in a light body. So I imagine at some point in fourth density, perhaps you learn to become a light body, and that has to do with why fourth density is invisible. But yeah, I think we're just too early to really distinguish the difference.
Okay, I've got a little bit on this. So they were speaking of fourth density for the planet being like a window of opportunity via the chiming of a clock. It's in regular intervals, you know, certain hardware 75,000 years. It's regular intervals. There's also what we deem modern science has found that, so as the planet goes around the sun, the entire solar system is actually traveling across the spiral arms of the universe. And so our solar system itself is actually never in the same place twice as we spiral around the arms of our spiral galaxy around the central sun. So we're doing our little annual spinning, and then it keeps moving. What scientists have recently discovered, I read an article a few months ago, our solar system has entered what they consider a magnetic vortex that we have only been recently able to notice. It looks like a tunnel of magnetic filaments, like there's just these lines of magnetism that scoop down and scoop below, and our solar system doing its thing has spiraled into this like literal magnetic tunnel. And so scientists can, as far as I'm concerned, my science brain is like, ooh, that could be part of the potential window that I call Earth, our planet, Gaia, has spiraled into, is now part of that chiming of the clock opportunity for leveling up with fourth density. So technically, the planet has a self-awareness, but has yet to level up in light into the heart space, the self-awareness, the understanding of the distortion of love. And as the mind body spirit complexes via humans on the planet, I believe Ra had said somewhere in there, and I don't have it memorized yet, but spoke to the effect of Gaia has the potential as her own mind body spirit complex to, as we've talked about before, the unification of our social memory complex. Gaia has that potential right now. We are in that window. And so Gaia is in the position of leveling up because there's enough of us that have brought forward the understanding of love into the green ray. We're moving out of the yellow ray and into the green ray, moving out of third into fourth, moving from self-will, which is also like back to prime instinct, DNA driven instinct of just living, rather than moving up into free will choices. And the free will choice is love and understanding. I even said it just a minute ago. Second density strives towards the third density, which is the density of self-consciousness or self-awareness. So Gaia has become self-aware, moving into the choice of the love vibration. is moving into fourth density. So we're technically at the beginning of that window where Gaia is like just hitting that level of fourth density. And when we have the opportunity, like we're right at the beginning. And that's why Ra continues to point out, this is harder for your planet than it is for most, because you have such a mix of positive and negative polarities. It's not as like others. It's not a straight shot into fourth density because everybody's on the same page, because we're not. The veil of forgetfulness and confusion and all those factors. So I hope that helps explain. This is something that's discussed all the time, because Ra goes back and forth saying you're in fourth density. We're like, no, we're not. And yes, you are, and you're not. It's all kinds of confused and chaotic, because then like a couple of sessions back, we were talking about the Maldekians, and then Ra goes into how we have like 13 different races among us mixed in, and then we have like, you know, the knot of fear from the Maldekians that had to get unraveled, and so there's like they're third density beings here, but they're still possibly the ones, just my own take, they could be the ones choosing not to be in fourth density and level up to higher understanding and love and light and service to others, because their souls are still confused. There is you're not wrong. So this is one of those things that's come up continuously, like almost every time it comes up in session, we're trying to pick that apart and gain understanding there. So you're right there with us. You didn't miss anything on that, because it's just continued to get to revisit and a little more plugged into it.
Yeah. I think the last thing I want to say on that is just to agree, like, you know, hanging out even when I have with some of the top scholars of this material, there's still a lot of like, wait, what? So you're not behind. I think that's why Shang and I both were smiling when you were like, I think y'all get this. I'm like, no, I don't think anybody really gets it yet. Yeah. Scott?
Well, when I put my hand up, you know, to respond to your question, it's more now at this point a reiteration of what some other people said, but I'll just say quickly, my perception, the way I thought about that, was that Gaia as a consciousness unto itself, the planet was in fourth density, and that the social memory complex of the human race was, you know, like we just said, like not meeting that vibration. And then also what Sean was saying about the spiral galaxy, that the process of the cosmic evolution being a spiral, and the energy speaks to how the planet itself has gone into this new density, and that, you know, ultimately there's no separation. So in that whole process of the spiral evolution, that's just the way I was thinking about it. Gaia is in that, like in that very, very early fourth density phase. And that's more or less what's going to, but like I said, it's just reiteration of what some other people said, but it was just to offer my perspective also.
Cool, thanks. So moving to Yuri.
Okay, so as I understand, the planters has already activated fourth density planet, our body, and it's positive because we have more positive oriented souls on the third density planet, and we have still the third density planet activated, and many 3D souls which have the biggest opportunity to be harvested to the fourth density, and there are fourth density beings which already are harvested to the fourth density, but they have dual activated bodies, which means like a fourth density body with three density body, and they are here now to help the harvest from the one point and to learn how to live on the fourth density planet being unseen by the third density. And I don't know if the souls after 2012 which are coming, there are some some of them are still the third density souls, or solely the souls with dual activated bodies are coming from that time. That's, I don't know. And that's it.
Yeah. Seems like it's also, you know, intentionally mysterious or something. Like, we're not supposed to understand. This is not the density of understanding. So, yeah, it continues to require our faith. And
I think there's enough on the line at this point with so many souls that are on the edge of graduating or not, that any sort of telling us anything about the future is a massive consequence of violation of free will.
yeah,
Because for all we know, maybe half the population will die in 50 years.
yeah, or less.
Maybe
be.
there is, sorry for the right saying that transition to the fourth density will take from 100 years to 7, I think, 100 years or 900. So if maybe if transition done in 100 years from 1980, it means that by 2080 there will be no third density beings on the Earth.
Mhm.
Peace on Earth
So-
in 50 years?
Probably.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Peace on earth by
Hopefully.
Thanksgiving. So we just have a few more minutes left, and Scott and Nia both with their hands up. Oh, no, yours was from before. Okay, Nia.
Okay. I chimed in earlier. I was sorry I was late. You know, similar to how a young child can look at a magician this magician is using tricks. Once explained to you how the coin is behind the ear, the child thinks it's magic. It's the illusion of understanding. Oh, he pulled it out of my ear, you know. 1 year older, you learn how these tricks are done. We are the preschoolers in third density of free will choice, of law of confusion, and the veil of forgetfulness. When, I mean, Ra even speaks, you know, Dawn says, is if I could see the difference of first, second, it's like, yes, all of the octave of your densities will be clearly visible. We're not the 4th through 7th freely choosing not to be visible. What I want to add is to you and your third density choice, forgetfulness. So to all the other densities, it's all visible. To us, we are in preschool on purpose. It's like we've incarnated, pre-incarnated choice to come here with forgetting on purpose. We are not meant to understand because think of the Matrix, red pill versus blue pill. And then they even say in that, most people need to stay plugged into the Matrix. They do not need to be unplugged. It would blow their minds. The paradigm shift of reality as we know it, the truth is too much for most people. And while we seekers have these conversations and get-togethers all the time, we're like, yes, yes, more and more, truth. There is a reason we are only getting fed so much information. There is a reason that we are only able to understand so much, because we are supposed to be in our third density existence. And I know we say these words over and over, but to have the realization, the sinking in of what that truly means for us to be able to act out, our daily lives, even while we're seeking truth, even while we want the veil of understanding to be lifted, while we are seeking the truth of the capital T. Even amongst us, were we to take the red pill, get unplugged like Neo and see the truth, that is not necessarily okay for everybody. And that when Ross states that plenty of us will be repeating third density, I love this one. Thus, the entry into the vibration of love, sometimes called by your people the vibration of understanding. So I'm reading that and I'm like, there's some in between the lines there, because 4th through 7th density, once we're there, they're all visible to us. That's not the vibration of love, also called the vibration of understanding. Y'all, that's a thick one. If we were to like, that's a whole one in and of itself. The entry into the vibration of love, sometimes called by your people the vibration of understanding, is not effective with the present societal complex. Thus, the harvest shall be such that many will repeat their density cycle. If it's not here on Earth, there are an infinite number. I mean, Ross says there are an infinite number of third density existences as well, y'all. Many of them are going to have the veil of forgetfulness as well. This is not just unique to Earth. The third density experience is what's unique with the veil of forgetfulness amongst billions and trillions of other planets and other existences. There's just not mean it's not there. And there's a lot out there that says that there is. So if we're to repeat third density, I'm assuming most of us are not. If we've gotten this far in our understanding, we're probably going to harvest into 4th and follow that light path. But our societal complex will. The energies of your wanderers, your teachers, and your adepts at this time are bent upon increasing the harvest. However, there are few to harvest. With that mix, a lot of people, I think, are going to be leaving Earth and going to repeat their density somewhere else. But just keep in mind as we maybe consider keeping in mind as we go, because I have to, that truth with a capital T is so paradigm shifting that as we go along our path of truth seeking here, we are of service to others. And so we are seeking truth with a capital T in service to others, not the other way around. And so having a veil of understanding lifted for our preschoolers is trying to teach them calculus is not going to work. So just understanding what we do, and even within that understanding, having a perspective. I mean, that one line alone with the vibration of love, which your people sometimes call vibration of understanding. So love and understanding are the same thing. I mean, that gets into a whole nother conversation around leveling up from, third density to 4th and beyond. So 4 through 7 is all understanding. They're all one, and they don't have the separation. Again, third density in this existence of the veil of forgetfulness being a very intense school of the soul that we've all chosen, even when it's hard. We're all here. We've all chosen it because we want to learn, because we want to grow, because we want to have understanding and love with the capital L and light, So keep that in mind when it gets tough. Love is understanding, and we're getting there, y'all. So hang in there with the understanding, and hang in there with the love and the light and the service to others. We got this.
Thanks, Nia. Any final comments? That's our time. Well, thanks for diving into this deep material together.
Thanks for hosting, BJ.
You're welcome.
Thanks, BJ.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Jake,
See you soon.
Bye bye.
See you
thanks for being
guys.
on the journey together, on the exploration,
Yeah, right?
inquiry.
So nice to not be alone in this. Mwah.
See you soon.
See you soon.